Hey everybody, I'm Tim Hockett. Today we're going to talk about the corrupting influence of power. There's a quote attributed to a British historian from the middle 1800s, Lord Acton. He wrote a letter to a friend, and in it he said, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." He went on to say in the same letter that great men are almost always bad men, even when they exercise influence and not authority. Still more when you superadd the tendency or the certainty of corruption by authority. You see, Acton was a Catholic, a British Catholic, and he opposed the Catholic doctrine of the infallibility of the Pope. And so he said, there is no worse heresy than that the office sanctifies the holder of it. Because it was thought that once someone comes into the office of Pope, that they don't make wrong decisions. So today I want to talk about the ethical notion of the abuse of power, or the concept of undue influence. I know it seems a little highfalutin, but maybe even rare, but we see it all around us all the time. Think about bullying, for example. All of us know about, or maybe we've even experienced a schoolyard bully. The guy that was usually a bit bigger, he seemed to form a gang of followers, and he loved to take advantage of vulnerable kids. He's the one who called people names and encouraged others to join in. And he's the one who, for no reason, pushed a kid down or challenged some unsuspecting kid to a fight after school. He would threaten, he would intimidate, maybe even get violent. He was the worst nightmare of every good parent. And so when your child comes home threatened and all of a sudden doesn't want to go to school anymore, or seems suddenly insecure, or develops physical or emotional symptoms, it's time to stop the bully, right? Right. The grown-up bullies are nicely illustrated by that mob boss we see on TV who threatens a witness or a witness's family if he testifies against him. I mean, it's great for a TV show, but believe me, it happens in real life and sometimes before our very eyes. Okay, so you can use your size or strength or meanness to bully people, but you can also do it with money. And it's interesting how the power of money can also cause corruption. We call undue influence with money bribery, and it's a two-edged sword because it's wrong to offer a bribe and it's also wrong to accept a bribe. When I was teaching college classes in ethics a few years back, I remember posing a scenario. I asked a class to imagine that they work for a company that takes care of elderly folks in their homes. You as an employee, I said, you pass a background check, you undergo training, and then you sign a code of conduct that clearly states you will not accept favors or gifts from the clients. All right, fast forward. After a few years in your care, an elderly gentleman who's very close to death now tells you he loves you so much, he appreciates you so much, and he wants to give you a gift of, let's say, $500 as a thank you for your loving care. What would you do? I asked the class, and almost everybody said, no, I would turn it down because I signed this thing that I couldn't accept gifts. I'd say, no, thank you, I can't. Well, then I upped the ante for the class. And I said, well, what would you do if he said, I want to give you $10,000, or I want to give you my car? What would you do if he said, I want to leave you my house, or several $100,000? You see, immediately you start to think, hey, I don't really need this job. I wouldn't have to work anymore. Uh, would you take it? What if he offered to give it to you by means of a back channel? Hey, I'll give it to your mom and then she can give it to you. I'll give it to your brother or someone you trust. and they'll give it to you, and then you won't get caught. What would you do? My point is that money really does carry power, and there's temptation when there's a lot of money around. And the more the money, the more the power. Let me be clear. It's unethical to offer someone a bribe, and it's also wrong to accept a bribe, to use your position to be self-serving. No matter how you cover it, it's still wrong. More importantly, in many cases, it's illegal. Every once in a while, we'll hear someone in power, maybe a policeman or even a judge or elected official, taking gifts in exchange for some favorable action. You know, Senator Bob Menendez is now in trouble, a Democrat from New Jersey. He's accused of accepting all kinds of luxurious gifts, both for himself and for his wife, from foreign countries. A Mercedes Benz? Really? A fur coat? Gold bars? That doesn't look good. Of course, he is presumed innocent under the law, but he has members of his own party calling for his expulsion from the U.S. Senate. The evidence suggests wrongdoing. One of the justices of the Supreme Court has accepted numerous very expensive gifts. You see, even the appearance of impropriety should be avoided. It's interesting to me that even back in biblical times, bribery is mentioned. Moses is told, it says in Exodus 18, Moses is told that when you're going to select leaders, pick those who have strong character, love the truth, and hate bribes. But undue influence doesn't stop at bullying or bribing. Sometimes people take their power and it just goes to their heads. That's what Lord Acton meant when he said that power tends to corrupt. And so we hear this, we know about this. I'm the boss. So I get to flirt a little more. I get to behave inappropriately with my assistant because I'm the boss. Or I'm a police officer. I can rough up somebody. I can always claim he was resisting arrest. Who are they going to believe? Or I'm a congressman. I'm on a committee to appropriate money for some special interest. I'm going to favor my biggest donors. You know, the weapons contractor. Or the famous, I'm a movie producer and I'm going to suggest to a would-be actress that she'll go far in her career, but she has to sleep with me. So the inappropriate use of a position can be very harmful, and in my view, it's really all too common. Sadly, we've seen it at the highest levels in America. The former president often used his power to exercise undue influence. While Marie Yovanovitch, the former ambassador to the Ukraine, was testifying to Congress, the former president was tweeting threats about her future while she testified. In 2018, the deputy director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, was fired hours before his official retirement. He'd worked since 1996 at the request of the former president, and he was denied his pension. He had to go to court to get his pension back. The president used his power for retribution because some of his employees outed his conduct. He punished people for telling the truth. It's just wrong. I'm sorry. Finally, there are conflicts of interest. That's another part of power corrupting. I've mentioned before the scenario where a local official has sworn an oath, to put, let's say, the city first. But he gets his building project permitted ahead of other projects because he's the mayor. In December 2003, LA Times reported that Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska had taken advantage of lax Senate rules to use his political influence to obtain a large amount of his personal wealth. According to the article, while Stevens was already a millionaire, thanks to investments with businessmen who received government contracts or other benefits with his help, the lawmaker who was in charge of $800 billion a year writes preferences into the law from which he then benefits. In our history, we look at the presidency and we have almost always seen that our president puts his private business into a blind trust. so as to be able to make decisions without the appearance of impropriety. Americans don't want the president to make rules or take actions so that he can profit. Donald Trump refused to put his business into blind trusts. Think about that. He also didn't want to release his tax returns. Think about that. He has to make policy with many foreign countries. How does it look if an entire floor of the Trump Tower is owned by Saudi Arabia, which it was? Or if many of his units worldwide are owned by Russian oligarchs? Could he be fair to America as he establishes policy with the Soviets or with the Saudis with such conflicts of interest? NBC said the following: the governments of 6 foreign countries, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, spent more than $700,000 at then President Donald Trump's Washington, D.C. hotel over the first 2 years of his presidency. According to newly released accounting documents, some paid as much as $10,000 for a one-night stay. The Reuters news agency reported this. Reuters News found that at least 63 individuals with Russian passports or addresses have bought at least $98.4 million worth of property at Trump-branded luxury towers in southern Florida. That's almost $100 million. Remember when he infuriated many Americans when he seemed to be pretty soft with Vladimir Putin in that meeting, in Helsinki, Finland? Lastly, the Trump Organization charged excessive fees for overnight stays of his own security service detail when they stayed in his properties. The blurb from NPR goes like this: the Trump Organization appears to have overcharged the Secret Service for stays at Trump-owned properties by agents protecting the then president. The charges exceeded the government's approved rate, according to the House Oversight Committee, which says Secret Service records show payments totaling over $1.4 million. The exorbitant rates charged to the Secret Service and agents' frequent stay at Trump-owned properties raised significant concerns about the former president's self-dealing. It may have resulted in a taxpayer-funded windfall for former President Trump's struggling businesses. According to the document, Secret Service would charge as much as $1,185 per room per night, nearly 5 times the allowable rate. Okay, bullying is wrong, bribery is wrong, making money off of an elected position is wrong. It all falls into the category of undue influence. I do fear that Lord Acton was correct. Power tends to corrupt. There are 3 big solutions. First, we must make the rules and law very clear for everyone that all positions of power must be above reproach, and especially for our elected officials. Second, we must insist on transparency. There has to be a lot of reporting so that conflicts of interest can be readily identified and stopped. And third, we must have teeth in the enforcement mechanisms for ethical misconduct. No slapping on the wrist. By expecting more from our leaders and implementing strong safeguards with teeth in their enforcement, we'll be a better, more ethical nation and consequently more united. I hope all of you have success, maybe become people with some position of power. Use that power wisely. Don't let it corrupt you. Think about it. Thanks for watching. I'm Tim Hockett. Hey, before you go, I want you to know that I value your thoughts and your questions. I do have 3 favors to ask. First, please subscribe to this channel. America Divided, we can do better. 2, make time to watch all these little videos. And 3, please share these videos widely. Together we really can make a difference. I hope you have a great day.